Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the NRG series event here in Fort Wayne. We are going to kill it today. My name is Anurag Das, and I'm here with Julian Kanab. We're playing a teams event today, so for anybody unfamiliar, that means we're covering three formats today. That's Pioneer, Modern, and Legacy. Good morning, Julian, or I guess good afternoon from Germany.
Good morning, Anurag. I've been waiting for you guys to wake up all day, so we're ready to commentate some Pioneer, Modern, Legacy. Really hyped for that.
Yeah, I am too. You know, there's a lot of stuff that's happened now. I know the Brothers War, the spoiler set is fully out, so we got a lot of talk about that today. It's not legal for today's event, but it's going to be pretty sweet here. Before we continue, let's take a little step backwards, take a look at some of the events coming up for the NRG series circuit, and talk about that really quickly. So let's take a look first at this. This is the season 3 schedule. This is the first event coming up here in the Chicagoland area on November 26th, 27th. That's the end of this month, featuring the first Pioneer 10K event here on the NRG series circuit. And then Sunday, there's going to be a Modern 5K. Upcoming events also include the Showdown in Louisville. So that's going to be, I believe, in December. Okay, December 10th and 11th. That is a $15,000 modern event, and that's going to be incredible. Sunday is a 5K Pioneer trial. This is going to be in Louisville, Kentucky. And let's also take a look at some of the leaderboard stats here. So for anybody who is unfamiliar at NRG, this is a year-long event where players will travel to events in the hope of getting enough points to qualify for the end of year championship. And right now you can see the season 3 leaderboard, the orange names on your screen: Ivan Espinoza, Andrew Ellenbogen. These players are already qualified for the end of year event. But right now we have Zach Allen and Raja Suleiman already at the top of the leaderboard. We'll check their progress throughout the day to see how they're doing and what their status is looking, like at towards the end of the event. Also, we've got the annual leaderboard. So this will give us a bigger picture view of the players that are queued for the prestigious end of year event. You can see here Jesse Robkin firmly in control of the leaderboard slot here, 141 points over the year, which is quite the accomplishment. Joe Bernal, Piper Powell, names very familiar to the circuit. So congratulations to all the names in orange. And there are 2 at-large slots for the end of the year series. So Zoe Riederman, Zach Allen, the names in white, they're also potentially in queue to make it for the end of year championship. We also have the list of players who are, as of now, qualified for the event. So you can see the names on the screen here. These are the very talented players who are going to be playing twitch.tv/NRG series for the winter 2023 finale. That is a $20,000 prize pool event, and it's 16 players only. You can see how each player qualified too through showdown events or the at-large bids. You've got Ivan Espinoza, the returning champion. So that is pretty sweet here. And then finally, let's take a look at today's event here in Fort Wayne to get a look at the prize support for the players that are competing. What are they competing for? Well, you see first place gets a grand total of $3,000. Second place gets $1,500. Third, fourth, fifth, eighth, all below there. And then more importantly, like I mentioned, right, the points you see on the right side, that's what you get to qualify for the end of the year event. So there's a lot of things going on here, both in terms of today's event in singularity, but then also in the grand scheme of things. Julian, I got a couple questions for you. Modern, Legacy, Pioneer, what are you most excited to watch today?
So basically, I would usually say Legacy, right? Because that's just like my jam. But I will actually be playing Modern pretty soon at a big tournament in Italy in December. So I have a lot of favorites, and I hope to get them on camera to just like see them in action. I wonder whether I'm going to end up a Chakmoth player, which I never thought I was going to be, but probably also going to be something like Breach that I want to see in action. So that's actually the part that excites me the most right now.
Ooh, did you say Breach? Because I was slowly chanting like one of us, one of like I remember back in 2020 when that deck first came out in Legacy. Like, I mean, you and I go way back, especially when it comes to Legacy. That was certainly a format like that for the short month and a half that it was legal. I'm so glad that it's not in the format anymore. Okay, actually not really, because I love the deck, but glad to know that it has a home in Modern.
Yeah, it was quite the interesting period, right? Because it didn't really exist in paper because you didn't have events back then. So if you experienced it, it was probably on Magic Online. And if you did experience Breach and Legacy, I think it's going down as one of the most broken decks the format has ever seen, along with stuff like Flash, and yeah, I think everybody who has done that and who has cast through the breach, not through the breach, Underworld's Breach, what that card is capable of. And we try to recreate that in Modern. We try to relive the excitement that card was in Legacy. And it's not quite there compared to Legacy, but I mean, that's probably for the better. And it's one of the best decks in Modern from what I can tell.
Yeah. we do have an incredible judge staff today, and I believe players are going through the judge meeting those protocols right now and so far. So the first match we're going to watch today is going to be Modern, getting word in from production here. But yeah, I am pretty excited. We do have a lot of preview cards to talk about too from hashtag MTG Bro, the Brothers War, referencing both Mishra and Urza. And I think that's pretty cool, just to think about those kind of things. So we'll get into it. We have a long show here today, but I do also want to mention today that it's not just Julian and I that'll be here on the cast. We also have two star-studded duelists that'll be wrapping up the show at the end of the day, Mason Clark and Devin O'Donnell, aka the Mason Clark, aka Doomwake. Very, very both pronounced names in all of Magic, honestly. So I'm super excited about that. And yeah, I was thinking about it too. I recently went to Magic 30 last weekend, and let's see. Okay, cool. I'm going to be really honest with you. Yeah, Magic 30 was an incredible event here. They had so many cool things there. If you were there and you got to experience it, that's super awesome. And super happy to meet all the people that I did. Special shout out to at the Will Hall EXP, who does great content. Like 24/7 streaming events and things like that. And okay, so I'm getting word that the announcements are still happening, and once the match is ready, we're just gonna dive right in, and it's gonna be pretty sweet. But yeah, Magic 30, incredible. I don't know if you've seen any of the photos, but the thing, like the production value of both like the world stream and the event itself, just out of this world. Like, it, for me, bodes so well for the future Magic.
I gotta say, my favorite part was actually the beta draft. I think you did what's it called, rotisserie draft, where everything gets laid out on the table, so you don't actually like pass around all the super highly valuable cards.
Yeah,
and I saw that on your stream, right? And you even ended up opening. I think you opened one piece of power.
I opened a set of Magic 30, and it looks like we're going to dive right into the match here. So again, first match that we're watching today is Modern. Team on the left here: Cain, Rianhard, Jesse, Robkin, Zoe, Riederman, Titans, absolute killers. And on the other side, you have Cody, Berglund, Dan Glonek, and Sean Termini. Ooh, okay. Look, I love Cain, I love Jesse, and I love Zoe, but I have to say I'm definitely biased. My boy Sean out here, hopefully playing Terminus. Hopefully, fingers are crossed. I'm just saying.
Is it just because of the name, man? Are
Look,
you that easy to please?
I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it. You're allowed to think what you want. I'm not saying it. This is going to be pretty great here. All right. And so we are watching Modern right now. I would be very surprised if Jesse Robkin was not playing Breach. So, Julian, your homework. Do you have it ready? Are you ready to teach me everything about Modern Breach, including, well, yeah, what does this card do?
This card is probably one of the most broken cards ever printed, right? And I remember when it was spoiled, everybody was like, how is this even legal? Because this is basically giving you a card like Yakma's Will, but for an entire turn. And the only cost that you really have is you have to exile stuff from your graveyard. So we use a card like Grinding Station to continuously fill up our yard while recasting a card like, let's say, Mox Amber, which is going to give us even more mana in the long run. And as we go through our entire deck, and eventually we just build up to having enough mana to cast something like, well, another super broken card that was recently printed, Thassa's Oracle. And with an empty library and everything in the graveyard, we just win the game at the low cost of 2 blue mana. Always been a very good mana cost, one of the most powerful spells in Magic. And this is what we do in Modern.
Yeah. It's really cool that you do bring that up here. I do remember back in the day where there was always that mantra like Modern is a turn 4 format. And to give you an idea of how good this deck is, I mean, this deck could kill you on turn 3.
Have you done it before? Are you actually playing this in Modern, or are you more like an observer?
Learning very, very, very slowly. I saw like a rug build here, which was kind of interesting to me. And that was pretty cool here. Just to confirm, yeah, it does look like Jesse is playing Breach here. I did see a copy of the title card in her hand, and then Dan playing a Bloodstained Mire. So could be evident of many things here. Rakdos Scam is the first thing that comes to my mind. But yeah, I was trying a rug version that featured Ren in 6. That was pretty cool. I know some players have been battling with that online a little bit to some success, and so I think after seeing how powerful the Jeskai version is, though, I'll probably find my home there.
Yeah, and nobody was surprised. I played the 5-color version of Creativity. I talked about it last time we had this on stream, and I initially won my first 2 rounds, and I felt like this deck is unbeatable. This is the craziest stuff I've ever seen in Modern. Yeah, and then Black Moon came along and completely disabled my entire deck. And far as happy as I am to have these hosers in the format, I'm one of those few people who actually like that. I think is it like 7th or 8th edition that makes it a big difference in modern. I know that every once in a while an awesome deck just like gets completely destroyed by it. But that's the beauty of modern. I mean, that's what you have to live with, and that's why
Yeah.
we all play it.
Oh yeah, something about punishing mana bases. There's beauty in that. As Jesse's gonna play a turn 2 Aether Spellbomb. It looks like we're fetching for a Triumph here, end of turn. I did see a copy of Fable, the Mirror Breaker, in Dan's deck, which means maybe we're battling against another contender in the format like Creativity.
Yeah, it is creativity. I just pulled up all the deck lists. It's creativity. We're going to have 4 copies of Fable of the Mirror Break, of course. We have Indomitable Creativity, which we are trying to use to get. Is Archon of Cruelty the best creature in the format? I mean, it probably must be, at least for this kind of deck. And yeah, this is what we're trying to do. If we have the mana, we can even destroy 2 of our own things and get 2 Archons into play that way. So that's, I mean, both decks in a way are really just combo control decks, right? Both are sitting back, trying to deal with anything that comes their way that could harm them. And eventually you just run out the combo and we'll see who's actually going to be advanced here because advantaged here, because I'm not actually sure. I think there's more controlling elements on the side of creativity. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have a favorite here?
I feel like if I ever doubt Breach, I'll look instantly foolish just by virtue of how powerful this deck can be. So I wouldn't personally say Breach, but there are some pretty ridiculous draws here that Creativity could have. So honestly, I think it's going to be less about which deck is necessarily better and like how players will navigate their hands and things like that. Speaking of which, by the way, a turn 3 Emery, Lurker of the Lock, coming down here. And I got to say, I love the sequencing here by Jesse, playing the turn 2 Aether Spellbomb, and then also following up with the Emery to keep it protected from potential removal spells like Lightning Bolt.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. That's something I didn't even think about because usually the spell bomb is used to bounce your opponent's creatures. And when you think about it, it's actually quite annoying, right? To have your Archon of Cruelty bounced by the spell bomb. And if you do that a couple of times, you will have to actually start hard casting your Archon. I played against that deck, I believe in paper even, where they ended up with too many Archons in hand and the whole deck kind of collapsed onto itself because they just like couldn't get to the mana to actually cast it. But
Right.
maybe there's some trick to get around that, other than just like having a crazy amount of lands.
Yeah, Jesse Robkin, not the only breach master. I'd also give a shout out to Ross Merriam and Corey Baumeister as like the I don't know, like the cloaked 3 that will decide what the breach, like they decide what stock and breach, like a la Dilks kind of deal. But yeah, I think Aether Spellbomb, especially alongside Emery, is quite powerful just because I've seen all the kinds of boards that you can stabilize from using this combination. And it's one of just another one of the tools that slowly checks off the list as to why this deck, Underworld Breach, is just so bonkers.
Yeah, generally speaking, you would think that Breach could be a little bit more of the beatdown, whereas Creativity is more of the control deck, because Creativity is sitting on a bunch of walkers, whereas Breach is usually trying to leverage creatures like Ragavan, Emery, and well, even Ledger Shredder to a degree, which can generate value. And right now, it's basically on Dan, right, to come up with something. And we do, as Emery actually hits the bin, and Jesse not using that other spell bomb to save it, as we were thinking about.
Okay, yeah. A main phase Prismari command, that's also very interesting here. The modes are going to be shock, deal 2 damage to the Emery, and then loot, draw 2 cards, and then discard 2 cards. And that's pretty interesting. Prismari command, a great card in this deck. I mean, every mode is quite amazing on this card. When I first saw this, I was like, it's no K command, but it does so much for this deck.
Yeah, yeah. Especially like even if you just like use it to generate a treasure token. I mean, those tokens are gonna be destroyed eventually, right? By the creativity to get your big dragon. Is it even a dragon? I'm not even sure into play. And versatility is key, especially in a format that's not. I want to say as fast as Legacy, you can afford to spend 3 mana, especially at instant speed, on an effect like that, and being insulated against a lot of things that the opponent could like throw you away, including like just randomly destroying artifacts.
Yeah.
That's something I think especially you would appreciate, right?
Versatility in general. By the way, I'll give you a hint. Archon of Cruelty is not a dragon. It is, I'll let you figure this out. I'll see how long it takes you. Archon of Cruelty is what creature type? It is Archon of Cruelty is, if
I
anyone
think
can guess.
It's an elf warrior, pretty sure. Oh, they errated it. I'm pretty sure in development it was still an elf. There's literally an elf warrior sitting on top of that Archon.
Yeah, you're actually right. And so this makes me wonder, like, what? So first of all, what actually is an Archon? Just like looking it up, and then second of all, if it is the writer, maybe it should be like maybe it actually should be an elf warrior. I don't know. Okay, all right.
If you want to go back like to ancient Greece, Archons were like the second class. They were basically kind of like the police force in ancient Greece, and the Archonists were like they were. Yeah, that's what Archonists were, if I remember correctly. But
okay,
not so sure. Like this is not exactly what I would imagine it. Like I guess the term has evolved quite a bit.
All right. Well, I was giving you reasons for why Underworld Breach was such a broken deck. And here's reason number 2 on our checklist. Expressive Iteration. This is a card that has completely taken over all of Magic. Not just Modern, not just Legacy. It's banned in Pioneer. That's how good this card is. And you can sort of see, Breach being able to play it all. It's going to pick up a copy of Scalding Tarn that's going to come into play. Shock a Sacred Foundry. And what's the follow-up play here? It's a Ledger Shredder.
Yeah, and that's just like another one of those small incremental advantage creatures, right? Like Emery, like Ragavan, and now we have Ledger Shredder down. And Ledger Shredder certainly is capable of eventually just finishing the game on his own. So Dan right now is sitting back. It's not an immediate danger, but you eventually want to get to a point where, yeah, you get your, this is dwarf, right, from our land down. And I don't know if we're putting the trigger. Jesse's tapped out, but I mean, just getting the Archon down and then having it bounced by the Spellbomb, it gets the Ledger Shredder off the board. It makes Jesse discard a card, and in a way, it kind of deals with the Spellbomb because it will have to be blown. But
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you can't go over it, can't go under it, got to go right through it. And so I almost wonder if, rewinding a turn or two ago, if that Prismari command could have maybe tried to shatter the Aether Spellbomb. Now, at that time, there was open mana, so it wouldn't be like the best play. But when you're thinking long term in terms of how you want to get your Archon into play and keep it in play, right? That's something to consider.
Yeah, I'm thinking about what kind of interaction Jesse can actually present here. We have Unholy Heat, we have Lightning Bolt. Those are like basically 5 instant ways to deal with it.
Underworld Breach is now on the stack. Now it's in play. I mean, this could just be game 1. You could see game 1 in both Pioneer and Legacy going to Team Glonek. I mean, maybe Jesse going to stabilize the game count here for the team. This is really scary when your opponent plays Underworld Breach.
I just realized, like, the other 2 games already finished. Oh, man.
Yeah.
That was quick. I don't know what the matchups are going to be. We'll find out in a moment.
Yeah. If I had to guess, Sean Termini probably not playing Terminus because that game finished way too fast. So,
maybe. The hope is still there. But yeah, Dan has to decide whether that's going to resolve. I mean, there's some counter spells in the deck, right? So I don't know if this is like still considered on the stack. I would think so, since neither player is really moving.
Mm-hmm. Now, keeping in mind, if you're wondering what might actually be in the graveyard here, there are a couple of cards that are really, really good. So the first one we're going to notice is one that is integral to the combo. That's Mox Amber. And like you mentioned earlier, Julian, that's the card that sort of facilitates the combo. But in order for Mox Amber to tap for mana, you do need to have a legend in play. Guess what? That's also checked. There is an Emery also in the graveyard that we saw get Prismari commanded earlier. With these 2 cards, Jesse is definitely in good position, but there's one key element that's missing, and that's the grinding station, the third and final piece.
Could be in hand, right? We don't really know, maybe. But on the other hand, this could just be a value breach, right? You just get breach out. You want to get some of your good stuff back into play, like the Mox Amber, the Emery that has hit the board now, and all of that. Actually, did we miss the looting on the Shredder? This is the second spell. I'm not sure.
Emery would be the second spell that turn. Oh, but and yeah, you can see Jesse pointing to, hold up, wait a minute. Emery's on the stack, and here's my trigger. And then the trigger does okay. So the binding comes into play here for a single mana leyline binding. One of the all-stars from Dominaria United. It's going to target the Underworld Breach, and that's kind of cool. That's really cool.
In another way, if Jesse's actually ever able to actually get rid of the leyline binding, that's just like another breach waiting to happen. But right now, we are firmly in the driver's seat, right? We have a big creature. We have a way to basically generate another card draw turn. We are able to deal with potential Archon of Cruelty that Dan could put onto the board. But yeah, Dan, it almost rather clearly showed that he might actually be holding creativity. We can't really see right now. The cards are a little bit dark, but it's upon him to do something now, because the longer you wait, the more the Emery is just like gonna grind you out of the game. And we might even get to a point where just like getting an Archon or two into play could be too slow, especially if your opponent is still threatening a breach kill at some point.
Yeah. Very cool points here. And this is, I think, another one of the reasons why. Look, I've given you 2 solid reasons that make Breach very powerful. The third reason that I'm gonna put on this checklist is just like look at the stage of this game, right? Both players are sort of like digging through their decks. They're trying to stabilize here, and this is where Emery is fantastic, especially when you compare it with something like an Aether Spellbomb to sort of cycle through your deck, or something like a Mishra's Bauble to draw 2 cards as well. A lot of cool tools in this deck that just like happen to work together, and that's my favorite kind of deck.
I'm just imagining somebody walks by the table who has never seen creativity before, and they look at this board and they see like the dwarf tokens and the goblin we get from Fable. Like, what actually is this deck, man?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, that's usually what happens, right? The more crazy a format becomes, and the more the cards do absolutely busted stuff, I think the more weird things are going on that people. I mean that's part of like the feel about understanding a format and why people like that format, because they can do all these crazy tiny interactions that are not that apparent to the outside. But yeah,
Yeah.
Dan just passes the turn, makes a Fable, and the Emery hits the bin as well. So Jesse once again just sitting there with the big bird. I mean, at this point, this is big enough. Like, where does a creature start being big to you? Ooh,
Oh,
never mind. Who'd have thought? Here comes
yeah. All
another creature.
right. That makes a lot of sense here. So now things might actually get spicy because we have Mishra's Bauble in the graveyard. We can get the Emery back, the Mox Amber, and our graveyard is pretty loaded. So this is a pretty powerful play here by Jesse Robkin. We're going to start with the Mox Amber. I like the sequencing here is that you start with the Mox Amber. Then when you play the Emery afterwards, not only is the cost reduced, trigger the Ledger Shredder. On point here, not missing a single Ledger Shredder trigger. You love to see it. And then, Mox Ember will immediately be able to tap for mana once the Emery enters play. So sequencing, very, very tight here. Good stuff.
Yeah, and I'm really selling myself on this deck. I'm probably like not anywhere as good as Jesse is with the deck, but that's the beauty of Magic, right? You get to grow with the decks that you play, and that's a grinding station, and that's basically it, right? We should have everything we need, unless Dan has anything to say about any of the spells we want to cast. I think Jesse should be able to run away with the game.
Okay. All right. Here comes the grinding station. 2 mana, and then exile 3 cards as the additional cost tacked on by the Underworld Breach.
Just assume this is Spell Pierce. I don't even know the artwork, but just like from the manners of it, this must be Spell Pierce.
How dirty is this? And I feel like Spell Pierce not even good enough.
Is it not? We still have like the Steam ones to go off, but
yeah, we can go Steam Vents and then. Oh wait, maybe never mind. The Mox Amber is in play right there with the other lands. I for some reason thought that it was back in the graveyard. Okay, so maybe this will halt the combo turn, but we'll see if there's anything else that can be done by Jesse Robkin here playing Underworld Breach. Looks like we are considering maybe buying back a couple of Mishra's Baubles. We do have a pretty loaded graveyard, which means that would represent like two or three cards that you get to draw in excess.
I mean, that's often worth it because it also makes it easier to draw into additional breaches. On the other hand, of course, 2 breaches already basically cast. There's 2 more in the deck. And for all we know, creativity would probably win if it ever comes to an actual beatdown here.
And
especially since Jesse doesn't really have ways to deal with the Archon other than a single Spell Bomb that can be recast with Armory. Production is telling us that the 3rd breach has already been exiled.
Okay. Sorry, I think my audio cut out for a second. Apologies there. I was a little bit quiet. But I can hear you, Julian, now, and I'm happy.
Okay. Welcome back, NRG. So yeah, we're just told that the third breach has actually been exiled, so there's only a single breach left in the deck. So still a shot to do it, but I guess at some point you gotta go for it. But no, we just get in there, some damage, and usually that would indicate that we pass the turn here, and the breach is probably gonna go away. Yeah, that one hits the yard. And now it's on Dan, right? This is basically the situation where Dan gets to do whatever he wants. Like if you have creativity here, how many icons can you actually go for? All of
A
them, pretty
lot.
much.
Yeah, all of them. Yeah.
That would take care of Jesse's entire board.
Entire
All the creatures.
board, entire hand, entire tournament. No, I'm kidding. I'm not gonna go that far. But
Not yet.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not even
yeah.
sure if there actually is a hand, right? I guess there's like 3 cards sitting on the side over there on the top.
Yeah, we had a lightning bolt left over. I think that was the last card in Jesse's hand, and then 2 cards were drawn for the turn off of each of the baubles that we bought back from the Underworld breach. So it's not. It really just does depend on whether or not Dan has a copy of Indomitable Creativity to start to just really let off with the fireworks and everything. Because now I think, like you mentioned, we're at that point where it's going to be pretty lethal. You know, the Goblin Shaman can attack to generate another mana, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. Land drop has already been made for the turn. That's okay though. Getting 2 Archons into play is still pretty powerful.
Yeah, and I would think you would just go for the creativity if you have it here, right? You're facing down a Ledger Shredder, which is gonna beat you pretty quickly. We don't really know about the lightning bolt that Jesse's holding, at least Dan doesn't. But this could be over like in a turn or two, and Dan better get going. I'm not sure what the thought here is, but there must be a decision to be made right now.
Right. So this is kind of interesting. I think we're going into combat, and this is a question I have. Do you use the Aether Spellbomb on the Goblin Shaman?
I don't have enough experience in the matchup. I would think I would not, because it just like represents bouncing an Archon. That might not come down anytime soon again. I mean, the upside, of course, is the opponent gets an extra mana for them, but I don't feel great. Like, and it looks like Jesse also doesn't really feel great about it, right? There's a big decision
Yeah,
to be made.
yeah. I'll play the other side of the table here and maybe explain why this is so complicated. Is because if you use the Aether Spellbomb to bounce the Goblin Shaman, you mitigate this from happening. The token coming into play. And why is the token important? Well, it allows you to go X equals 2 on the Indomitable Creativity, and so essentially using the Spellbomb on the Goblin Shaman is getting rid of potentially 1 copy of Archon of
Oh,
Cruelty,
that's
right?
smart. That's smart. So you're denying the extra mana. Yeah, creativity like not for free, right? You have to pay for the extra targets. That's a
Yeah.
really good point.
Yeah. So it's a little bit tricky there. But it looks like the Goblin Shaman going to go through it. Instead of creativity for X equals 2 or 3. Um, oh, I'm just kidding, by the way. We have 5 mana anyway, so we're gonna make 2 Archons, but I guess stopping the third one could be kind of interesting, but then you just lose your whole board. Okay, never mind. I agree with Jesse's play here. My mistakes. But Fable gonna come into play, and now we're untapping with Emery and cycling the Aether Spellbomb, and that's a little bit scary because it's been in play for so many turns when Jesse had the option to cycle it earlier.
Yeah, and Chessie already went through 2 breaches. Another one has been exiled, but so much card advantage available right now, right? We're
Mhm.
gonna get back the Spell Bomb, where I think we have an Expressive Duration in hand on her side. There's what else is there? The Grinding Station is just gonna be discarded. This almost feels like, hey, I'm just gonna grow my bird, and maybe if I find another, let's say, Lightning Bolt. Let me check how many there. Actually, there's only a single Lightning Bolt in the deck.
Okay.
So in order to kill here, we don't have enough on the board right now, but we can definitely present lethal on the next turn. And we also have like the random out of just like, fighting breach.
Okay. And I didn't know, I kind of like overhyped the Aether Spellbomb. Going into being cycled here. But A, that's my job. B, it does force us to buy it back with the Emery as opposed to the Mistress Bauble or some other tool here. So there is a little bit of a cost to it. It's like these are like the small things that I do think matter in the grand scheme of breach and like the minutia that make it such a crazy deck.
Yeah, also interesting that the Spy Bomb was cycled, right? It was not used to bounce any of the tokens at end
Mhm.
of turn and then replay to bounce another token, which would be like the long-term play to deny Dan resources. This is more like of a going for the throat play almost. Like I just want to stock up on extra
Yes.
cards to make
Oh,
sure that I can protect my win.
You literally stole the words from my mouth. I was gonna say this is going for the throat too. And that might actually be what's really scary then, you know? It's just like, uh so yeah, thank you for making my job easy and giving me reasons once I fall into a little trap here. Now, what's interesting though is that when we're talking about lightning bolt, one potential play that we can do is just bolt our opponent out like four times, three times, I guess, with Underworld Breach in play. We do need enough mana for it, but unfortunately, there's only one copy, I believe, left in the deck here, as one got milled earlier, and one's under the leyline binding, and then one also just finished resolving a couple turns ago.
Which are you referring to Underworld Breach?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So actually, that's a cool point, right? You would use your one lightning bolt to still deal like something like 9 damage with another Underworld Breach. But right now we're sitting on a bunch of like that's Thassa's Oracle in hand, doesn't really do too much. I guess it can give you a pretty good scry. Basically, we have 2 Unholy Heats, the Lightning Bolt, and I think a Mox Amber in hand. So not the greatest. And interesting that the Express Iteration wasn't cast here by Jesse, just like past the turn.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. Wait,
Guess you know what you can do
iteration?
is you can unholy heat the targets of the creativity if it targets your
Hmm.
dwarfs and negate it that way. I guess that would work.
Like that. Conveniently leaving up red, red, red with 3
Yeah.
removal spells. You know, I'm not gonna lie. If this actually does happen, this would be like the greatest plot twist ever. Opponent goes or sorry, Dan goes, here's my creativity, X equals 3. What you got? Well, okay, I'll kill this creature, and then I will ping this creature, and then I will get this one. And then you're just looking at like nothing.
Basically reduced to all to a token deck. Like I saw somebody in chat call it a 5-color token deck, and thus far, I mean, the deck is capable of a lot of things, but thus far it has basically been a 5-color token deck. But that's probably be a different kind of story in the second game, as Jesse's probably a huge favorite to take it here, right? I don't really see a lot of chances for Dan, and I'm not even sure if there's a creativity in hand. I see a Renin 6 in hand, an Arid Mesa, and not sure the card on the very left is even a creativity. And without it, there's no hope of even winning the game in the first place.
It looks like Modern's favorite blue-red split card, Fire Eyes.
Oh, that used to be a really big card in Legacy.
Yeah.
The
Now,
yeah basically indicates 10 years ago. Which
I
is
wasn't
right.
gonna
Which is
say
very
it,
right.
but Dad, wake up! It's 2022.
It's like that meme of that grandma. Like in my times, we cast. Yeah. Let's get you to bed.
Now, this is interesting. Ice will say like by 1 turn at least here. He's going to be able to tap the Ledger Shredder, which means we aren't swinging for lethal quite just yet.
Any
But
way to get through with the Emery? There's like 2 tokens. We can bounce one of them, and probably we could like unholy heat the other ones.
okay.
No, but Jesse just like going for the value here.
Yep. Buying back the Aether Spell Bomb again, keeping the shields up here against something like Archon coming into play next turn. This Spell Bomb has looked incredible this game. Just has been completely, dictating like the pace of play in the sense of like, okay, going for 1 Archon, which is powerful, simply would not be enough. Starting as early as like turn 1 or 2.
Yeah, this is basically the playmaker, right? This is the Diego Maradona, or in basketball, who's like the playmaker in basketball? Is it like the
Point guard? I don't
point
know.
guard, exactly? Who's the
You're
most
asking the
famous
wrong
point guard in basketball?
right.
Chat, help us out.
Yeah.
We need an alteration. We need to put him or her on the spell bomb.
Oh dang. Oh. Okay. All right. Thassa's Oracle. Devotion X equals 4, and it finds a copy of Teferi, which is pretty good on the sports state.
Teferi never really a bad choice, right? Especially if your opponent is trying to resolve the creativity and protect it with their own potential copies of counter spells. But right now, we just have the value Oracle. Dude, I
That's
love
pretty
this deck
sweet.
so much.
That's pretty sweet. I love. You rarely see this happen ever in other formats. But this is I like this a lot. I don't know. It's something about an honest, like, this is how the card was designed to be played. Like, well, okay, that's actually not true at all because it has the words "you win the game" on it. So only nefarious things were happening in R&D when this card was being concocted from, like, the witch's cauldron or whatever. But we'll see how the play goes out here, as Fable is going to come in as the reflection of Kiki Jiki, one already in play, which means if we do somehow get an Archon into play, we could give
You know, there's a
Uh,
really sweet play that you can make, but you would need to get another turn. Once you
okay.
have like 2 copies of them and one of them is not summoning sick, you can use all your mana to basically twin them out. You can basically turn every single colorless or colored mana that you have to turn into copies that will live to the next turn if you do it at the opponent's end step. And then you untap with like, I don't know, in this case, like 5 or 6 additional copies, which probably not enough to kill Chessie, but a lot of people wouldn't see it coming. But right now we have Teferi coming down at Dan's own Teferi, and that's one of the ways that would actually stop Chessie from removing targets of the creativity in response. So Chessie has to make a choice, right? Do I like proactively remove the targets, or do I just like get some value by taking out your reflections of Kiki Chiki? And right now, I think we're just going after reflections.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Control the board a little bit. Make sure that we aren't going to get overwhelmed by something like a creativity. Now, I think Dan only has one card left in the hand, maybe two. Hard to say, but if that card is exactly Indomitable Creativity, then we're in a good spot. I'm trying to see also maybe if there are any copies of something like Transmogrify in this deck as well. That's something that to be uh cognizant of as well.
Yeah, I thought I had seen a run in 6 in Dan's hand, which would be the last card in hand. No, it's actually okay. All of a sudden, we have Fire Eyes in hand. That can buy another turn. Oh no, we're even bouncing the Ledger Shredder. We don't even need to tap it, and we have
Okay.
enough blockers to not die to a Lightning Bolt. Like Dan, probably like very aware of the threat of Lightning Bolt. Like none has been milled, none has been exiled. So there's a really good chance that Jesse might just have it in hand, and I'd be shocked if he just like even cracked that Eric Mesa because he already played around that Lightning Bolt as good as he can.
Okay, Aether Spellbomb still in play here, still insulated from something like an Archon. 2 mana getting tapped, 3 mana getting tapped now. Prismari command here, targeting the Emery and maybe also looting as a secondary mode. We'll see if Dan goes to draw a couple cards here. Yeah, okay, looks like loot is the second mode here. So it's kind of interesting because like this whole game, you and I have done a very good job of talking about the threat of indomitable creativity. But where the heck is that card? You know?
Yeah, if you ever played against it, you're like, dude, this token deck is actually surprisingly good. And I almost buried Dan. I was already talking about the second game, but right now, I mean, there's a big threat from Chessie's side. You spotted a Teferi in her hand, and if that is the case, then Teferi can come down and get back the Underworld Breach, which would allow us to cast Lightning Bolt twice, for all I can see. And not sure what Dan could actually do about that, but let's see if that's actually going to be the line.
Oh, that's a pretty sweet one, actually. No, you're right. Yeah, because Teferi, yeah, wow. Okay, this is actually big. And so for all I've talked about, yeah, you can see Jesse moving so fast here. It's just like I have the wind locked up now. Just need to make sure I don't mess this up. Underworld Breach coming back into play by bouncing the Leyline Binding, and you can't cast that one again because Teferi's passive cuts that off. And there's the Bolt 2x, thanks to Escape. Jesse Robkin going to take game one here. Underworld Breach up against Creativity.
Dude, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's the kind of magic that I absolutely love. Like I love creature magic, but I also love like these tiny little interactions all over the place. And with saying that, we move to our favorite format, right? Legacy. What do we have here? This is
Are
the
those turn
third game
timbers?
even.
Oh, I
Oh,
think I
is this
think
Oops All Spells?
I think so. I think this is your good old Izzet Delver against Oops All Spells, which we've seen actually in many formats. But walk me through what both of these decks are trying to do here. I guess one deck very obvious, Delver of Secrets in play, Dragon's Rage Channeler, and we're attacking. But what about the other deck?
Well, the other deck tries not to go to the at least fourth turn that we are probably are in, or fifth turn even. But ideally, what Sean wants to do is not have any lands in his deck. Then use that to generate 4 mana to get something like a Balustrade Spy down, which is going to reveal cards from the top of his deck until a land has been revealed. Since none have been revealed, basically it puts the entire deck into the graveyard. And from there, Legacy has many ways to win from there. The most common way is to put Necromoebas in play, which will dread return. Guess what? Thassa's Oracle. The card is just everywhere. Ideally, you do that very fast because the deck is definitely capable of doing it on the first turn even. You have some protection, sometimes in the form of Pact of Negation. But once it goes to later turns, right, a lot of more cards are going to be active from the Delver side. And I don't know if Sean... I don't... The matchup is really hard to call when you can't really see Sean cards. Like Sean could be sitting on like all Pact of Negations and Enabler, but if I had to guess, like we should be in a pretty sweet spot here.
Yeah. Okay. So just as a heads up, by the way, we are in game 3 now. Zoe Riederman at 1 win. Sean Termini at 1 win. Cain Rianhard back in Pioneer. Cody Berglund also tying the games up here. So we're in a lot of game 3 situations, and this means that it's getting a little bit tense now because if one team gets 2 wins in any of the matches, their whole team wins, and there's a chance that Jesse Robkin and Dan Glonek may not even have to finish their match here. As you can see, creatures coming in. Delver of Secrets flipping to a Force of Will that was put on top of the deck thanks to Mystic Sanctuary. Probably one of the most powerful lands, printed in recent, if not just ever. And let's see. Sean's simply going to pass the turn here. Is this just a turn card sideways? We have a win? I can't tell if the Dragon Switch Channeler is delirious yet.
It probably should be, right? Considering how deep we have already gone to the game. We already, yeah. Okay, that's going to be, that's 6 damage. That's going to be enough. And that's the first win for the team of Zoe.
All right, yeah. Team Riederman is up. And let's go ahead and see what the next match is going to be here. I do believe this is Cain Rianhard playing Izzet Phoenix.
Yeah, it should be Izzet Phoenix against Epson Aggro. That's what our tiny production thingy here tells me.
Yeah, I see. I mean, I definitely see Izzet Phoenix, and I definitely see Mausoleum Wanderer. So casting doubt on. Hey, this is just a PSA for TOs. All right, if you were ever submitting your deck on Melee, and you get the chance to put in the actual name of the deck, shout out. Judges will love you. TOs will love you forever. All right, casters will also love you too. That's all I'll say.
Well, cut them some slack. Maybe there's some Epson Aggro actually coming out of the Spirit deck at some point. But yeah, I'm with you here. This very much looks like a Spirit deck. Doesn't have a lot of Spirits in play. So NRG, help me. Who's actually favored on an empty board with both players just like sitting there making land drops?
Well, that's a really good point here. I think definitely it's going to be in the Phoenix's side of things, because if you look at both of these decks, right? So this Bant Spirits deck is kind of like a tribal list that focuses on, very, very aggressive draws in the form of like Mausoleum Wanderer. You've got like Rattle Chain Spell Queller. Supreme Phantom is a nice 2-mana lord. And the idea is that you want to build up your synergies to present overwhelming threats very, very early on. And so that by the time you get to turn 4, turn 5, you've got these like four power, creatures swinging in and things like that. But you'll notice there's not a single creature here on Cody's side. And why is that? Well, Izzet Phoenix? I like to call it Izzet Phoenix, but secretly it's just like, is it control? Like you just dirtle a bunch, you draw a lot of cards with, Treasure Cruise, and you used to have Expressive Iteration, now you don't, but still Treasure Cruise pretty good. You could see in the hand there for Cain a copy of, I believe, Opt. Pieces of the Puzzle, another card that's very powerful in the strategy. And then the rest of your deck is just floating through the entire game. You have either removal spells or you have counter spells, depending on the matchup. And you just want to keep the board, you want to stay alive until you get to your quote unquote combo finish, which involves bringing back multiple copies of Arclight Phoenix. This is a card that we've seen in Modern, we've seen it in Legacy, and now in Pioneer. And then, maybe if you can also get a Temporal Trespass, that's a pretty sweet card to take a couple extra turns alongside Galvanic Iteration to swing for lethal in just like one big shot.
So I'm actually wondering, since we see Cain with 2 copies of the Phoenix in hand, usually that's not a big problem, right? You can just cast them, and if the opponent is able to deal with them, you eventually bring them back from the yard. A card like Spell Queller could actually permanently remove them from the game, at least for as long as it stays in play, so you don't get the second shot on a Phoenix that has been dealt with. I wonder if that interaction is actually going to come up later on.
Yeah, I think there's also this like delicate balance of like tapping out on your turn, because at the end of the day, this Bant deck also plays one of the most powerful green creature cards printed, and that is Collected Company. I had you there, right? You thought I was going to name a creature? No. Collected Company also in this deck. And so in any capacity that you want to keep your shields up, because if you tap down low and then your opponent plays a Collected Company, well, suddenly, they're getting into play and they're developing those synergies that we mentioned earlier. So, really good on Cain here for playing the game slowly, taking their time to realize, all right, what's important here? What do I need to play around? Even if Cody doesn't necessarily have the cards, it's on Cain's radar.
I'm wondering, since these have been sideboarder games, I thought you could maybe read something into Cody not doing here, like not running out of any of the 1-drops or something, but I guess a lot of those have probably been taken out, and Cody is considering himself in the control role, which I guess Cain is kind of happy with. But
Oh,
we'll see. Oh, dude, Anurag, by the way, help me out. What do you call it when you hit the best 2 cards of Collected Company?
value.
You hit it. You no, come on. You,
Sorry, I couldn't
if you
help it.
cast Collected Company and you hit the 2 best cards you could find, you hit the coconuts. I love that.
Take it back. Oh, that's good. That's a good one. All right, I gotta write that one down for later. Oh, it's the first time I've ever heard that. Did you come up with that so good?
You should come to Europe. I've heard it like 10 years ago here.
Oh, that's good.
Or like 6,
All
I guess.
right.
Yeah.
So let's see if we can get that card on the screen here, because I'm also going to be reading this for the first time here. We do get a copy of Supreme Phantom in play. And then what is this other card? Is it a Cemetery Illuminator, I think? I think it's Cemetery Illuminator. That's a 2/3, 1 blue, Spirit Flyer. When it ETBs or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. You can look at top card of your library anytime. Once each turn, you may cast a spell from the top of your library if it shares a card type with the card exiled with Cemetery Illuminator. So this is in that cycle from the set that had what was it? There was another one. It was like Intrepid Adversary, I think. And so it's pretty powerful. I mean, it is on type. It's a spirit. Good to be able to get 2 creatures. Honestly, like I've seen people smash walls over missing with Collected Company. So kind of interesting here. Treasure Cruise being exiled. It also, locking down the graveyard a little bit does matter in this matchup. As small as one card might be, it's the kind of thing that can add up over time. So 2 creatures in play here, a 3/4 and a 1/3, facing off against 2 Ledger Shredders.
I'm wondering, even if Cain ever actually gets like the Phoenixes down, is that even gonna be that big of a problem for Cody? Like the whole Phoenix deck has so many ways to just like ignore that. Like I guess you could even like Skycliff Apparition them away eventually, or just like chump block them for a while, or even just like build bigger creatures than that. So I'm curious how exactly the game plan is gonna work out here. I would guess it might even change up quite a bit after sideboarding. But right now, Cody's just like developing the board, right? If this was chess, nobody's like yet in a mating position here. But I like Cody's position here, I would guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna see.
What is the engine saying?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I think at this point I think we're just looking to amass all of the relevant removal spells in the deck here. We do have a couple copies of Petty Theft in our hand already. That could help sort of stabilize the board here. Portable Hole, got to come down and take care of one of the Ledger Shredders that had a counter on it. Oh, and here's another Collected Company that's going to trigger the Ledger Shredder, but I don't know. It's looking kind of scary here.
It's kind of a weird position, right? Where Cain is sitting on a lot of mana and actually using that mana, but not all that much is really happening.
That's my kind of magic. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I could picture you casting this. This is like Anurag currently has spent 67 mana in this game, and this board is like 12 lands.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, no, this is interesting. So, Collected Company is still on the stack here. I got a lot of things to say, but first of all, that Cody's board said just a couple turns. When we walked in on this match, there was literally nothing in play. So now it's kind of a little bit crazy to see that Cody might actually be in the driver's seat here. And I love this. It's a team tournament, which means your friends get to help you decide what to get rid of here. And Brazen Bar are going to get sent to the graveyard off the Ledger Shredder loot here. Collected Company going to resolve. What are you looking for here from Cody's side?
As a non-spirits expert, I would just imagine more creatures, maybe even ones that make the other ones grow. So that that's the dream, right? Eventually you grow your creatures so big that you don't really fear the phoenixes anymore. And at that point, what is Cain really gonna do here? I'm looking at the deck list right now. How does Phoenix actually deal with the problem if there's actually gonna be something like 4/4 showing up at some point?
Yeah, honestly, now that I think about it, there's so many good cards you could hit, like Skyclave Apparition. The Supreme Phantom I actually think is really good here, just by virtue of the removal in Pioneer is not as powerful as in Modern or Legacy, and so there are hard limits to what your removal is going to be able to do here. Specifically, the red-based burn removal, right? I think if we look at the Phoenix list here, like we're looking at, I mean, you've got a couple Spike Field Hazards. Lightning Axe is going to be a pretty good one here, but eventually you want to get to the point where you do outsize it if that's possible. They'll take a little bit of time, but it's it's building blocks, like one step at a time here. Then I think there's also Fiery Impulse, which now we are pretty insulated against thanks to having that second Supreme Phantom. So that's the big one right there that we're happy to have the Phantom in play for, which means with Cain now at 6th life, oh man, it's actually pretty scary.
I mean, I could imagine something like, I don't know, an Anger of the Gods should be able to deal with a lot of stuff that we're seeing on Cody's side here. I don't know if that one's in hand. There's two copies in the sideboard, and I would imagine Cain would certainly bring those in this matchup. But what is this going to be? It's the Fury Impulse you talked about, right? Oh, but first of all, let's go to town on these shredders.
Triggers, counters. This is pretty cool. Yeah.
We're going to put probably like a couple of Phoenixes into play at the beginning of combat, just to like present some more. I almost want to call it like beef, just like put anything into play and present something to have it on a board. Might not be a winning position, just because the life total, as you mentioned, is so low, right? So we're definitely going to lose that race. But this is the turn where Cain really needs to catch up with what's happening on the board, unless we hit something like we mentioned earlier, like Anger of the Gods, to do it that way. Right now we're matching. We're not removing, we're trying to match.
Yeah. As a heads up, looks like Dan Glonek going to take game 2 against Jesse Robkin. So we're in game 3 situations across the board. Team Robkin, Team Rianhard, Team Riederman only needs 1 win to take the match here. But I guess now, oh yeah, both Creativity and Bant Spirits are going to have to win in order to win the match here for Berglund, Glonek, and Termini here. We're going to see removals. Petty Theft is going to bounce the Cemetery Illuminator back to the hand here. 2 Arclight Phoenixes coming into play now.
And that looks good, right? No, now Cain is the one with the bigger creatures.
Momentarily, yeah. So Ledger Shredder, a 3/5 and a 2/4, a couple 3/2s. No good attacks here, so I think happy with this board state. And the most important point is that we're not dead yet, which I think to me at least is where we want to be when we're trying to stabilize in this matchup.
Yeah, and I would guess if Cody's not actually able to match or contribute to the board even more here, that the next turn is where Cain is really excited, right? The next turn would be where Cain might even be able to go on the offense. And Cody has to weigh his options here. I'm not sure what there is in hand. Technically, we're insulated against Anger of the Gods, I guess. But as soon as like one of those lords dies, things.
Okay. And I know what I said sounds. I was just thinking about what I said, which was like if we're stabilized, we're happy. And that sounds a little bit silly because we're playing the control deck, we're trying to stay alive. But I want to dial down on that too. It's just that like, given the context of the matchup, we are not the beatdown. We being Izzet Phoenix. The Bant Spirits deck definitely is. And so okay, so we're gonna see another portable hole come into play, and then also Cemetery Illusionist. But the idea is that if we are not dead, we're happy because generally speaking, we have the better late game. So that's one thing that I do want to reference here, that in terms of like stabilizing or just like gumming up the board and making sure that creatures can't attack us, we're pretty happy with complicating the board state, because the more time goes, well, in theory, the better off we might be. Though looking at the board state, maybe this is one deck specifically, like Bant Spirits, that is much more complicated by virtue of their blockers also just having flying.
No, I like that. If you ever write a book about your life, you got to title it, "If we are not dead, we are happy." it's just like the NRG way of life.
Blue mages, Tundra mages everywhere. They can they feel that one.
I have 19 points of extra life, and I'm gonna live out all of them. But yeah, so what's happening here? We have an Aberrate, we have an Opt. I mean, Cain can play the game where we just like trade off our removal spells against like random creatures on Cody's side, even though the spirits right now are too big to be uprated. So we're just gonna go ahead and Opt. Honestly, like it feels kind of weird. You would think that eventually there's this big explosion in the Phoenix deck, right? And I guess part of that, what the deck can actually do, I think you brought it up earlier, is the Temporal Trespass, right? Where you get to take an extra turn, which could be enough to send you over the line at some point. But with 16 life against 6, that's just such an awkward, annoying way to fight. Like if Cody was on a lower life total, maybe we could do it, but Cain is to be really careful about the life total here.
Okay, but this is a really good draw here, and you can sort of see here now Cain coming back in with a braid. Okay, that's going to get copied thanks to the galvanic iteration that was cast just prior. Ledger Shredder going up to 3, discarding another Arclight Phoenix, and this is how the deck is supposed to operate. You can see casting multiple spells in a turn here, very cheaply costed cards as well, and there's the Spike Field Hazard. Okay, and that must mean that perhaps. Okay, so that's what happened, right? A Braid is going to target both of the Supreme Phantoms, one on each, and then the Spike Field Hazard is going to get rid of one of the Lords. So then when that 2/4 dies, the other 2/4 becomes a 1/3 with 3 damage on it. Bang, board cleared. Very good.
That's, I guess, a makeshift terminus. And a one-sided terminus, we call it a decree of... What's the decree that kills all your opponent's creatures? Pain, annihilation? Something like that?
Something like that. You're asking a question that predates me. You're showing your age, Julian.
Dude, that card was like the sickest card that we had in the schoolyard. Like if somebody had that, Decree of Pain, there we go, 8 mana, you can also cycle it. Nobody cycled cards back then. Everybody had like 12 mana on turn 26 because everybody played walls. So yeah, but now Cain actually managed to create a board side where the Phoenixes can just like come crushing in along with the Ledger Shredder, and Cody all of a sudden like with his back against the wall. I'm not sure what the one card that we have in hand here can actually do for us. Is this the Bird Lord that grows all your flying creatures?
Yeah, Empyrean Eagle. Yep, it's a 2/3, 3 mana flyer. Other creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. So that means that the Cemetery Illuminator is going to be able to swing in for a little bit more damage, but certainly not enough here. So let's see what happens now. I mean, and that was a big chunk of damage that came in last turn from the squad. 3 Arclight Phoenixes and the 4/6 Ledger Shredder. Looking at the graveyard to see what the potential options are. And yep, that's going to be it. Picking up the cards here. Cain Rianhard going to win this match 2-1, which means Team Rianhard, Robkin, and Riederman have won their first round of the day. That was certainly a sweat. There were ups, there were downs. We got to see all bits of the matches, which was quite nice.
Yeah, that was, I want to say, good Magic all around. We didn't really get to see all much of the Izzet versus Oops or Space, but the Modern and Pioneer matches we got to watch, that was something. And I think there's a lot to be learned from those kinds of matches that are super intricate. And I don't know, man, it's just like the excitement for especially Modern keeps building in me so much. I'm probably going to be a breach man. Is that what you call it? Is that like a superhero? I'm going to be the breach guy.
No, I'm not even gonna bother. And I will say, as someone who doesn't like play enough Pioneer, watching the intricacies of that game specifically was quite nice. So like the reason I think that game specifically was good, is because it showed some of the flaws with the Izzet deck, very specifically like the upper bounds of what your removal spells can do, and then how Cain was able to leverage the primary power of the deck, which is to like it's kind of just like any blue-red deck, like in Delver and Legacy, for example. It's just like finding the right cards at the right time, or building your cards up together to have like synergies that'll completely decimate your opponent there, right? So what I'm talking about specifically, like you had a couple 2/4 Supreme Phantoms, you had a very large Cemetery Illuminator, and then a couple other creatures that we saw throughout the game. And then by combining your removal spells together, by digging through your deck, by generating those advantages, you're basically able to beat everything. And honestly, that's kind of my style of deck, where you just go massively ahead on resources. I mean, Treasure Cruise, right? Like that's a very fun card to play, even in Pioneer. So I don't know. That was pretty exciting to see how you had pieces of a puzzle, and then you, no pun intended, put them together, and then you were able to win your game there. So pretty exciting. Looks like we are going to have Jesse, Robkin, and Zoe Riederman in the booth now. They look fantastic here after that round 1 win, which I'd be very hyped for. There are a number of tournaments I've had where I've lost round 1. We're gonna pan over to the interview, and okay, Julian, I hope you have questions ready, because I'm telling. Hey guys,
hello. What up?
Awesome.
How's it going?
I gotta say that round 1 was pretty exciting. Zoe, we didn't get to watch a lot of your match, but that game 1 Modern Breach against Creativity was kind of incredible. I don't know, like Julie and I were watching, and there was like I feel like there was like a dance being danced there, like between is the creativity there? The spell bomb has been in play forever, and then eventually, like 3 breaches gone, and then you're like, Teferi, you bounce the ley line binding. We're going ham. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so when the first breach got binding, it was pretty clear based on the way that my opponent was playing that he had a ley line binding. And honestly, all I wanted that breach to do was get back the Emery, and then the binding or the breach would just be sitting there whenever I drew Teferi, which would eventually happen, to bounce and get the breach back, which made me feel a lot more comfortable firing off more risky breaches later in the game, because I knew I had that one in the back pocket underneath the ley line binding.
That's really dirty. I like that you set that up from the very beginning. Those are the kind of intricacies that so Julian is actually a breach master in the making. He's got a lot to learn from you.
Wow.
I'm slowly picking up. I'm picking up through watching the Masters at play, and I'm just incredibly impressed by the deck, and it has this huge draw to me, and seeing people who like you, right, who obviously know the deck in and out, navigate it, and just the use we talked about it of the bobble, the spell bomb, that was just the most amazing thing to me, because we felt like this spell bomb made the entire game left and right.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, we were talking about you should put I don't know, some famous point guard, or I don't know, football playmaker or something on it, because that card made the entire game left and right.
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean,
Julian, one thing I will say is that Jesse has actually written the primer on Breach. You could definitely check it out. Jesse, give a shout out. Where could, if people want to learn more about Breach, where could they find anything that you've written? Because there's so much literature out there by you specifically. That's great. Hit me up. Where can they find your work?
So my 2 primary Breach articles are on TCG Player. There's the original one I wrote in March about the base Izzet version. That was sort of the introduction to Breach. And then in, I believe it was September or October, I wrote an updated guide with the new cards and the way the decks have changed and the metagame have changed. So yeah, that's the it's TCG Player. You can search my name on TCG Player or Breach TCG Player and you'll find it. You can also follow me on Twitter too. I tweet about Breach fairly regularly.
Okay. I will learn. I have a big tournament coming up. I need to learn everything about that deck.
Oh yeah, I think the deck might be the best deck in Modern. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm convinced at this point.
Yeah. You watched it happen next to you so many times.
Yeah. Well, let's switch gears over a little bit to Legacy now. So Zoe, we got to walk into your match closer towards the end. You had a lethal Delver of Secrets and a Delirious Dragon's Race Channeler coming in.
Yeah, and I had Force of Will, I had Surgical Extraction, I had Wasteland for any other lands. I was full of it.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a good position to be in. But talk to me about how that match played out, because I'm sure when you sat down in game 1, were you expecting Oops All Spells?
I was not expecting Oops All Spells. I was like, okay, I'm keeping a 7 that's pretty good in fair matchups, but if I get comboed on turn 1, I'm dead. And I did get comboed on turn 1. I pondered into a Force of Will, and I'm like, I can't keep this because I need to find another land. So, yeah.
It's funny. Yeah. It's funny because Zoe wanted to play Oops All Spells in this tournament, and we nixed it.
What?
We
could
vetoed
have
it.
had the mirror?
Yeah, Oops All Spells is my pet deck, but both of my teammates were like, no, you're not playing this deck. It's inconsistent. You have to play
funny.
Delver. And I was like, okay, I'll play Delver.
It's so funny you mentioned that, because in a lot of team tournaments, I've read about people saying maybe there's going to be a lesser share of these quote-unquote all-in combo decks because the teammates will not let the player play that kind of deck.
Yeah, you could play Oops All Spells on your own time.
Okay, I will.
I've played the Oops Mirror before, but you trust me, you do not want to be in that position. But
Zoe shot me this look. Zoe shot me this look after she got comboed on turn 1, and I was like, "Look, I have changed my opinion 0. I am so glad that you were not."
This could have been me. Yeah. That's awesome. All right, so let's talk about the rest of the tournament then, right? So I think this is a 6 or 7 rounder today, is what I heard. And I mean, for any tournament that's important, because from what I also gather is that we're going to be playing the whole event today, right? All of top 8. So that's going to be a pretty long day.
Oh, wow.
How are you guys feeling about the rest of the event? Your decks in your respective metagames, and then just the top cut. I mean, yeah, take it away.
First of all, I didn't know we were playing the whole tournament today. That's fun. Second of all, I feel good. I feel like we are all playing one of the best decks in each of our formats. We're all great players. We all know what we're doing. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling refreshed. I got this cold coffee because it got cold during the match. So I should be all set. I don't know. How you feeling, Zoe?
Yeah, we're all playing Steam Vents.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think
We're Team
blue and
Vents.
blue and red cards are pretty good just in Magic in general right
Yeah.
now. So I feel pretty positive.
Our team is registered, what is it, 7 copies?
Seven Steam Vents between the
Okay.
three of us.
Yes. So we're
yeah.
officially Team Vents this tournament.
Yeah.
I like that. That's flavorful. That's pretty awesome. Well, yeah, all right. I mean, 3 Masters on the team. I expect you all to do very well. I'll see you in the finals again. Yeah.
I hope so.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best of
but
luck.
thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to come back to the booth here. That was pretty insightful. I mean, getting to see a little bit about what the rest of the other matches were. So keep in mind, we're playing a team event today, which means 3 matches are being played simultaneously. Again, the formats are Pioneer, Modern, and Legacy. So if you're just joining us and you're curious as to why players are playing together, well, this is an interesting structure. And the best part is you get to play with your friends and they get to watch you royally mess up. And then when you do mess up, they laugh at you for the rest of your life. And I think I'm going a bit too deep off the edge here. No, not a personal experience, not for me. No, but I think that is awesome, Julian, that, strategically speaking, like who you play with, it does matter because, your teammates get to help you along the way in each of your matches.
Yeah, especially if you play Oops or Spells, right? And your matches, like that's another strategic part of it where you're like, if I play a deck that has very quick matches, then I can go over and maybe help my friends. In my experience, the best teams that I see playing, they usually have very little interference of like the outside players into the actual match, except for like, I mean, if you're about to commit some big blunder, then they might actually stop you. But I love the part about like Zoe actually wanting to play Oops or Spells and her teammates being like, no, this is not going down in this house. And then the first match comes around, you sit down, your opponent literally kills you with Oops or Spells. And like that look, we should have had that look on camera. Maybe we can talk to Norm that we get actually like play our face cams
just like have like some sort of like that's funny. But that's also an interesting thing that you're mentioning too, which is like in a team's event, there are certain settings, right? So I personally found that when I was playing in team events, I generally played decks that were complicated enough where like if somebody just came in to a match like in the middle of it and started looking at it, like I don't think they'd be able to like really understand all the nuances and like everything like that would factor into my personal calculations. So like prior to my event starting, I'd be like, look, unless you played 1,000 matches with this deck and you're like basically better than me, which is actually a pretty low bar. So maybe I should do this more often. Don't talk to me during my match. That kind of
saying
deal.
it. I wasn't gonna say it.
But the best teams I find are the ones that have that synergy down. So there are certain people, they work better, playing solo. Certain people work better, playing together. Like I think I've seen before, it was Andrew Ellenbogen in an event that, his teammate top 8 and they were all working together and they were all talking. Well, at least Modern and Legacy were playing together. Pioneer was sort of often a thing, but that sort of thing that you can't get in regular Magic is one of the reasons why I really like team events.
Yeah, and when you think about it in the greater sphere of, I guess, esports, team events are probably like the most popular ones, right? And part of it is that you get to share the blame, of course, if something gets wrong, but also if you win, you get to share the glory, and you won with your team, right? You're not only like, you and I have won tournaments, and it's great, but I've actually never won a team tournament now that I think about it. And I would imagine it to be all the much greater, even when you like, you high five each other, you go out afterwards. And I mean, in a way, a lot of people, I guess in the US also, right, do that. You celebrate with your fans after the tournament. But if it's like the 3 of you who actually like they are in the picture and they won and they carry the trophy, and it's you who won, that's just that. I would imagine, I can only like not speak from experience, but I think that's just like all the greater feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, friends, we have a couple minutes left until the next round. So we're going to kick to a short break. And when we're back, there's going to be magic. And when I say a couple minutes, I mean like 2 minutes. So if you need to get like popcorn at, I guess, like really early 11 in the morning, go for it. Grab your drinks. Come back in a bit. We're going to cut to a real quick break. We'll see you soon.